Within these foods, there are morphine compounds. Morphine, super highly addictive compound, morphine in gluten as well as dairy, which means you will go through withdrawal. That food was like a drug. All right, everybody, welcome to this episode of the podcast show, the Jacque Show. I'm so excited to go over this with you and also to be able to get all the negative feedback that I'm going to get through this. So this podcast is going to be designed for a challenge for you. This is something that has been so inflammatory on social media that people are losing their shit. They're losing their minds on this and they're fighting so much. I mean, it's cool for me because I got over 100,000 views on the one video talking about it. Don't put this in your shopping cart, but let's talk about this. Let's talk about gluten and dairy. Let's just dive into it today. A lot of us are so emotional about this, right? We have dairy, and dairy is one of those things that it's one of those comfort foods that, you know, growing up, we'd have mac and cheese, we'd have pizza on Fridays, we'd have this, we'd have that, we'd have queso, we'd have buffalo chicken dip, which, by the way, was one of my favorite recipes my mom passed down to me that we have since altered because we don't do dairy. But we grow up with this stuff and it becomes so integrated into the fabric of our everyday lives. And my wife did a beautiful job. Megan was like, she's like, listen, Jacque, like, you know, we've been doing this for a while. And I think that you take for granted how long we've been doing this. And I thought, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, you're right, you know, and I know emotionally it's a struggle for a lot of people to even think that dairy is bad for you. And we're told drink milk, and you have Brett Favre with a milk mustache and a heavy push for drinking milk, and you have to drink milk. And so I'm like, okay, so we know it's ingrained emotionally, and I'll talk about the emotional connection, why it's so difficult for people, but also we're told that this is how we get calcium in our diet. We need it for strong bones, right? We don't want our kids breaking bones. We don't want our kids to be sick. We don't want our kids to have any type of issues, whatever it might be with calcium. We don't want those diseases. So what do? Right? Where else can I get this? And that's the question. So what's the alternative? What would you do for an alternative for milk? And I'm like, well, and Megan called me out on this. I'm like, you want an alternative for texture? Do you want an alternative for nutrients? Right? Because if it's nutrients, you're sure as shit not going to get the texture. Right? I'll tell you to go to greens. Go get some leafy greens in there. Get some calcium that way. It's not going to be a milk replacement. I'm not going to tell you to juice some broccoli or something like some spinach and it's going to taste the same as milk, because it's not. And for saturated fat, there's plenty of other ways that you can get healthy fats to be able to build strong muscles if you want to. But when it comes to dairy itself, I think it's important that we understand the spans of dairy. Okay, so when we're talking about dairy, we're filling in the void of the numbers of, like, let's talk about butter. Okay, butter that is clarified and supposedly it has all the inflammatory stuff out. We're going to have the ghee. Okay, so ghee. So we'll just go the optimals, right? So we'll go grass-fed butter. We'll have ghee, so clarified butter, ghee here. We're going to have, we'll say, cheese, which is one of the worst things for you, which is also one of the most emotional. Cheese, cow's milk, obviously, sour cream, yogurt. Okay, those are some of the most common ones, or the most common dairy, if you will, that people are going to consume. And so if we go in reverse here and we're told, hey, yogurt's good for you, yogurt has great probiotics in it. You know, I was listening to Supergut on audio. I was driving to get, I think it was to get a haircut actually. And they were talking like, oh, well, you know, we're told that we're going to need to eat yogurt so we increase our probiotic count. But when you actually look at the probiotics that are within the yogurt, it's crap. It's really not getting anything. It's just a marketing thing. You slap probiotics on it. People are like, oh, probiotics are good. Let's get some probiotics. And while you're doing it, you're having this inflammatory cow's milk. And so people are like, well, what's the alternative? Right? So what's the alternative to yogurt? Well, you can do coconut milk yogurt. You could do almond milk yogurt. There's cashew. There's oat milk. I don't remember if I say that one. There's all kinds of different options. We have them in our refrigerator. Right? And that's the easy. You can go to the grocery store and pick those up as an alternative and go from there. Right? I'm not going to talk about the gums and stuff like that today, but if you're talking about alternatives, that's something that you can do. A more accessible alternative, a more enjoyable one, is finding yourself a way that you can find some probiotics that you want, right? So you take a probiotic, it's like a powder form, you dump it out there. You can actually get a yogurt maker, a probiotic fermenter to make your own yogurt. And then you have like the best of all worlds, right? You could start with a coconut milk culture here, and you build the probiotics into it, and you have the best version of coconut milk you can want. And Supergut has a super easy how-to on how to make your own yogurt that you can look into, or you can reach out and I'll patch you through and get you a copy of that. Not a book, but tell you either where to get the book or how to do it yourself, right? So that's yogurt there. Cow's milk, like what's the alternative to cow's milk? Well, you can do your own milks, right? So you can do oat milk, you can do almond milk. Do not do soy milk. Don't get guilted into that. Even if you've got like the lactase milk, it's still going to be dairy. It still can be inflammatory for your body. And we're going to get to the challenge here in a minute. But what I would recommend to do, and this is what we do, my family and I do, is we have this almond cow machine. Okay, now it's more expensive up front, but really when you're spending $10 a quart for, some nut milk that lasts you a couple days, it's so much cheaper in the long run to just use one of these machines. You get your own milk in literally 3 minutes, just goes and it's done. Pour it into your own little jar, put it in the fridge. It's good for 3 to 5 days. You run out, you make your own. You can make your own creamers like this too for your coffee. Okay, so I would recommend using one of these almond cow machines so that way it's easy. You know what's going into it. You don't have to worry about the gums and the fillers and all of that crap that go into the normal milks out there. But there are natural alternatives too. There's Elmhurst as a brand. Organic Khalifa Farms is another milk that doesn't have stuff in it like that. And Malk, M-A-L-K, that one's a little bit easier to find. That and the Organic Khalifa are two of the ones that are easier to find. Elmhurst, you're typically going to look at more of like a boutique store, like a Sprouts or like a Whole Foods. Okay. Go into sour cream. There's really no alternative. Cheese, there's no real alternative. You can find like this vegan cheese and stuff that's out there. It's pretty disgusting. They've been working on. There's some cashew cheese that there's a pizza shop in Sugar Creek, Ohio called Park Street Pizza. They had their own like cashew cheese, and that stuff was delicious. But you can't find that really anywhere else. I don't know how they made it. They made it in house, and maybe I can call them and bribe them for the recipe and share with you guys. But if you're ever in Sugar Creek, Ohio, go to Park Street Pizza, get the gluten-free pizza with the cashew cheese, and be prepared to have your mind blown. It's so good. Anyways, so going to cheese and sour cream, there's really not that many alternatives. Sour cream sometimes and cream cheese, you'll see that there are some like nut alternatives that can sometimes pass off, maybe some almonds in there. But for the most part, you're not really going to find a tasty alternative. So if you're doing like your homemade pizzas, just leave it off and put some like olive oil or some sort of like some garlic, add some spices and stuff to it to replace the taste and the texture of the cheese, because you're really not going to find a good alternative. It's just going to push you back to regular cheese. Okay. And I'm trying to give you things to do to be successful for this challenge. Butter and ghee. Butter is going to be better than the vegan butters. Vegan butters are going to be made with some rancid inflammatory seed oil. Stay away from that stuff. If you see like canola oil or rapeseed oil, safflower, sunflower, whatever you find on the back, it looks like plant-derived ingredients, just throw it the hell away. It's not good for you. And so butter would be like a safer alternative. Butter is also on the lesser side of inflammatory ingredients with milk, but I would still tell you try to avoid it through this particular process. Ghee, it's going to be clarified. So it's going to have a lot of the inflammatory components of the butter taken out of it. That's a taste kind of thing. If you can tolerate the taste of ghee, then it's okay-ish for you. But for the purposes of this, I want you to challenge yourself to avoid all dairy products for 30 days. All of it. All of it. Okay, so that's why I was giving these alternatives, and it could take you some time to stock up and learn on this stuff. And like, what do I do? Cooking oils, a lot of pans, you don't even need cooking oils. Whether it's Teflon, which is not great for you, or if it's like a cast iron, things like that. You could put like beef tallow in there for like a cooking source. You could do pork tallow if you want to. It's kind of gross, but you could do bacon grease if you want to do that. It's super tasty. Throw your eggs in some bacon grease. You could do avocado oil. You could do coconut oil as an alternative for cooking, but that's what you want to do. And if you go to a restaurant, it's going to be really difficult for you in this 30 days because they typically just slather butter on everything and they don't really give a shit. If you say you don't want butter, they do it anyways. So for the purposes of this, I want you to try to be as resourceful as you can to avoid these things, but also be as successful as possible. Now, what people will tell me is that dairy doesn't cause inflammation. Dairy is good for you. I'm seeing Instagram influencers say, I've been drinking colostrum for 30 days now, and look at how beautiful my skin is, and blah, 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 blah. At the end of the day, guys, dairy was not meant for us to consume, right? What would you think, right? If I'm a 36, right? Carry the 36-year-old man, and I still was going around trying to find breast milk, and I was just latching on to say, this breast milk's good. Yum, yum, yum. I drank a full glass, 8 ounces of breast milk a day just to get my calories up and get my calcium up. What would you think about me if I did that? You'd think I was a freaking weirdo. Well, hopefully you would think I was a weirdo. I would want you to judge me as though I was a weirdo, because I would be in that instance, right? But when it comes, and that's natural. That's what we would supposedly be supposed to drink. And that's why we create this lactase molecule, this enzyme that breaks down lactose within milk while we're in breast milk, while we're feeding. And then as we phase out of breast milk, we lose that enzyme. That's a normal evolutionary trait. We no longer have the ability to break down milk past the breastfeeding years, right? Whether you like it or not, that's the fucking truth. Okay? But now you're telling me, well, don't do that. That's weird. But what I do want you to do is suck on the teeth of a cow. That's where you get the good nutrients. It's like, what are you talking about? Go attack that. Go latch onto that. Go latch onto a goat and go drink that. Like, no. Not only are we grown-ass people and we don't have the enzyme to break down human breast milk, we don't have the ability to break down cow's milk, right? And you're like, well, what if we take the A2 out of it, or the lactose out of it? Or what if it's A2 milk? Or what if we do this? What if you're trying? There's like and we'll get to it. There's a drug dependency when it comes to dairy. People go freaking apeshit over dairy. Don't you tell me that I have to drink. I've been doing it for X amount of years and I'm super healthy. And I'm like, let me test your gut. Let me test your hormones. How's that cancer been for you? Right? Especially if you drink, for the love of God, if you drink conventionally raised cow's milk, get the hell out of here. You don't have a single leg to stand on. You don't have a stump to stand on when it comes to healthy milk and it being good for you. Hell no. Right? It's emotional. When we talk about this and people are like, this has been going back and there's ancient tribes and things that would drink this and this was blah, 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 blah. I'm like, come on. No. Right? If you look back at the history of milk, right, we had people who were farmers and stuff, and they would walk across countries and stuff with their cattle. And if there was a shortage in food, right, they're like, there's no food for me to eat. They would go and drink the cow's milk. As a last resort, they would drink the cow's milk. As a last resort. Okay? And so when we do these things, we try to emotionally justify these habits. I call bullshit. Just stop with it. Because that tells me you don't know your life without milk. And if you don't know your life without milk, you don't know how healthy you can be. And this is where the 30-day challenge, I want you to go 30 days without any of this stuff. And I want you to document how you feel. I want you to take a picture. You can send it to me. Just don't be inappropriate. You could take a picture of this stuff beforehand, okay? Front, back, side, okay? Take a picture of the skin. If you have any rashes and things like that on your body, document that. Document how you feel. Document how often you poop. Document your how often you use antibiotics, or document how often you're depressed or you're having trouble falling asleep. Document any symptoms that you might have. Then go 30 days honest with full avoidance. Get through the 2 weeks of withdrawal. Get to 30 days and then redocument how you look, how you feel, if those rashes are still there. Do this for your kids too. Talk about your behavior. Talk about your mood. Okay? Do that for 30 days and then try to come back and tell me dairy is good for you. And if after 30 days, you're like, I didn't notice a difference. Put dairy in and see what happens. I guarantee you feel like shit. Guarantee it. If you have a heart rate variability tracker, a Whoop, or an Oura Ring, see what happens to your heart rate variability. It's going to drop as it was going up because you got inflammation out of the body. Okay? Milk is emotional. Gluten, which we'll get to next, is also emotional. Within these foods, there are morphine compounds. Morphine. super highly addictive compound, morphine, in gluten as well as dairy, which means you will go through withdrawal, which means that food was like a drug. Drugs are one of the only things that are categorized with withdrawal symptoms, or addiction with withdrawal symptoms. So again, try to tell me that dairy is good for you, especially if you can't make it out of that 2-week window. Life is going to suck for a little bit. Push through it. It's better on the other side. Okay? These morphine compounds, casomorphines and gluteomorphines from gluten, casomorphines is going to be found in cow's milk. It's going to be found typically in cheese as well. It's going to run the whole gamut. Highly inflammatory, highly toxic for the body. And so if we remove these things, your body's going to get pissed off because it needs its drug. It needs its fix. And it's like, come on. That guy's an idiot. Yell at him. Go on his social media page. Tell him he's an idiot and tell him it's bullshit. And you feel horrible without milk, and you need your milk, and you never felt this bad when you had milk in your system, and get angry. Guess what? You just got emotional. You just showed signs of withdrawal. You just showed signs that food was a drug for you, right? You failed. Keep pushing through for 30 days. Document it and see how you feel. Document your weight too. I guarantee you're going to drop some pounds too. Women, you're going to drop some weight. We're like, well, shit, I didn't have any symptoms before, but I couldn't lose this 5 pounds. I lost 10 pounds. What in the world? There's your dairy. Put it back in. You gain weight again. Right? Because what's milk designed to do? Milk's designed to make us bigger. Breast milk's designed to make us gain weight. Right? Cow's milk, other milk is designed to make our cattle or to make the babies biggest as humanly possible, as quick as humanly possible. How the hell do you think that's good for you? It's not. It's not. You've been told for years and years and years and years and years by TV, by farm ads, by your parents, by your grandparents, your great-grandparents, so on and so forth. We've always done this, and no, you're all dying from the same stuff, and you can't figure out why. It's because you have an inflammatory diet. You're not willing to change. 30 days. Go 30 days without it. Okay? Now let's get into gluten, the other inflammatory one. So let's talk about gluten here. So gluten is another one of those things it has the gluteomorphines or morphine compounds within it. And so there's a guy that he did the equation. It was like 0.5% of our entire ancestral line has been consuming gluten. Like there's like a half of a full percent of our population, of our people, consumed wheat. And we think, oh, we've been doing this forever. No, we haven't. Wheat is a new thing that has kind of come into the society. It's only been around for a couple hundred years or so, really in mass production. And then if you want to say, oh, they're doing wheat and stuff back in the biblical times, that's fine. But at the same time, okay, one, it wasn't the same as it was right now. But two, that's still only a little snapshot of the time that our people were alive. Okay? So going into like the BC and the AD, et cetera, there's only been a fraction of time that we've actually been consuming gluten. And really, there is no benefit to gluten at all. There's none. And so gluten, yes, we know it's going to be wheat, but we've got barley, malt, rye. And then there's these crossover things too, where dairy can have some antibody contribution to the anti-gliadin IgAs that are found within our bodies. You'll find on a stool test as well. And you'll see these people that are constantly eating gluten, they're constantly eating wheat. And we had a company that I sent an email. I was like, yeah, I was going to knock this shit off. It was Our Father's wheat. Our Father's crushed wheat is what it was. And so I'd be telling my patients, like, listen, you got to go gluten-free. You got to get away from this stuff. Don't go gluten-free assuming that you're going to go and eat something that is gluten-free. Gluten-free is garbage food. Gluten-free is like, I don't know, this crystal is gluten-free, right? Like eat stuff that is just naturally gluten-free. It's not like it's constructed to taste like gluten, but it's not gluten, right? So whole foods, whole fruits, whole vegetables, whole meats, whole plants, like eat like we're supposed to, not this hodgepodge of ingredients that are just a cluster F of just, ugh. Number one, gluten-free stuff is typically going to taste like garbage. Number two, gluten-free stuff is going to have a lot of inflammatory ingredients in it as well to make it mimic the same exact look, taste, and feel as gluten. Just like an Impossible Burger trying to make it like it tastes like beef when it's horrible for you. these genetically modified components of the gluten-free movement, yes, it's nice in a pinch if we need a gluten-free bun, if we're out somewhere, or a gluten-free cake, or whatever that might be. There are certain versions that can be better than others. But for the most part, when I'm talking about going gluten-free, I'm talking about eating a whole foods diet, not this mixed stuff where it's like, for breakfast, I'd be like, hey, have some eggs cooked in some coconut oil, have some avocado, have some berries, maybe some gluten-free steel-cut oats. Lunch, have 2 hamburger patties, bare, or you could put some homemade condiments on it and have some salad or lettuce as like a replacement bun. You just make like a hamburger bowl, mix it all up in there, throw some avocado in there as well, maybe a banana if you want that. And then for dinner, do something where you're doing more vegetables, more fruits, more fats, more protein, and mix that all up. And then snacks and stuff in between, just have them be some nuts. And that's basically the extent of it for 30 days. It's pretty freaking easy. It's not difficult. It's not expensive. Just do that. If you're like, well, what do I do for lunch? Make a crap load for dinner before you eat dinner, package some in a little Tupperware container, have it for the next day. There you go. I made it incredibly easy for you. Gluten is one of those ones that is highly, 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 highly toxic for you, and highly, highly, highly emotional as well, right? Because it's in pretty much everything, right? Where it's like pasta and garlic bread, right? And I'm Italian, I'm Sicilian, right? And I'm like, I'm not doing bread. They're like, what? Right? We went to Italy and we had the host that was there for my uncle's birthday. They cooked us or baked us this vegan gluten-free lasagna. It was like the best lasagna we've ever had in my life. And like whole family just pounding it down, chowing it down. And we told them afterwards what it was. And they're like, what? And they're like, I can't believe it. And they just kept wanting more. But yeah, I mean, these cultures, whether it's Italy or whether it's here in America, first off, we have different types of wheat that we use. So there is a better type of wheat that they use over in Italy and some of those European countries. However, it still contains gluten. So as long as it still contains gluten, it's still going to be inflammatory to our body. And I'm sorry, but I'm not. I don't really care about your emotions around the food. Go 30 days without it and see how you feel, right? And if you're like, well, if I'm going 30 days without dairy and I'm going 30 days without gluten, how do I know which one's which? Well, if you want to go crazy, go 60 days. Do 30 days without dairy, 30 days without gluten, if you think you're strong enough to be able to go that route. Okay, another alternative is say you go 30 days without both of them. Introduce one at a time. Introduce some dairy for breakfast and see how you feel. Okay, or introduce some toast in the morning and see how you feel. And those symptoms can hit you immediately, which will typically happen after 30 days, or can hit you about 3 days afterwards. So if you randomly you throw in some bread, and you're like, oh, well, I don't have any symptoms today. And then 3 days or 2 days from now, you have a massive screaming headache. And you're like, oh, my gut hurts and everything hurts. And now I'm craving more bread. Now I'm craving more pasta. Now I'm craving more carbs. And now I'm bloated, right? Then you know one or the other is going to be causing or contributing to your inflammatory state. Okay, guys, it's really not that hard. It takes the mental fortitude. I can't say it's not hard. It is hard. Let me rewind that. It is hard. Initially, it is hard. The hardest part about going gluten-free and going dairy-free is, number one, when you tell people, people get emotional. They lose their shit when you tell them, oh, that doctor doesn't know what he's talking about, or that person, that you don't know what you're talking about, and that's stupid, and I've been doing this, and I'm super healthy, and blah, 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 yelling, screaming, right? So like my rules on that, if you're going to go gluten-free, dairy-free, and you're going to tell people you're going gluten and dairy-free, make sure that you tell the people who are going to support you on that journey. If you're like, hey guys, I want to do something freaking crazy this month. Let's get 5 of us together. Let's all go gluten and dairy free. Let's see how we feel. Just for shits and giggles, right? Let's do it. Let's band together. Let's do a group. Boom. We'll do it together and we'll be accountable for each other. In the first couple of weeks, we'll suck. But say you want to have dinner with your friends, or you're like, well, how am I going to go out? Because I'm not going to be able to be social and I don't know what to do. Have 5 people that you hang out with and go over each other's house. Right? 5, or well, if you hang out with 4 people, you go 1 house a week, or you can go 5 weeks and go 1 house every week. Everyone kind of revolves around the 5, but then you'll be able to have a little home cooked meal, gluten-free, dairy-free, etc. And you have that support that you need. Again, tracking your symptoms, tracking how you're doing, tracking how you're feeling. Okay. Gluten especially serves no purpose in the body, in the diet at all. Again, it's highly emotional. It is woven into the fabric, the amber waves of grain, right? Not patriotic of me to say gluten's terrible for you, but it's woven into the fabric of it. For breakfast, we have eggs and toast. We have sandwiches For lunch, we've got chicken nuggets at McDonald's, hamburgers with buns, chicken patties with buns, pasta with garlic bread. Like every single meal, every standard meal comes with some sort of bread, comes with some sort of gluten, some sort of dairy. It's literally a staple in our diet. It's a staple in our children's diet. If you want to do this too, make sure that you're doing this with your kids as well, and watch how amazing their turnabouts are. If you have a kid with ADD or ADHD or behavioral issues, go gluten-free, dairy-free, and I guarantee you their behavior and attitude changes. I guarantee it. You can bitch at me if it doesn't, but if they go fully dairy-free and gluten-free, I guarantee you their attitudes are going to change. Okay? Same thing for you. You'll be less short with your spouse. You'll lose weight. You'll have higher sex drive. You have more testosterone. You'll be less inflamed. You'll have great bowel movements. You won't feel bloated. You'll feel sexy because you don't feel bloated. There's so many positives in this, and all you need to do this for is 30 days. And I want you, this is a challenge. It's not like, oh, this is easy. Do it. I want you to do it. Stick it out for 30 days. And if after 30 days you think I'm crazy, I'll take all the hate that I get. I don't really care. It doesn't bother me. I'm used to being bullied when I was a kid. You can't bully me harder than I was bullied when I was a kid. Trust me. They did a great job back then. I want this so that you feel what it feels like to be gluten-free and dairy-free. The amount of patients that come to me and I just do a small tweak and I'm like, hey, you know, we had you going dairy-free for a long time and you're doing pretty good, but you're still complaining of headaches or you're still tired or you can't sleep at night. I'm like, just try cutting out gluten for a month. Boom, they cut it out. I'm like, I've never felt better. I've never felt better, right? And alcohol, a lot of the alcohol is going to have some grains and stuff in it as well, right? Like bourbon, a lot of bourbon is going to have some gluten in it from rye, so like rye whiskey. Beer is just slathered in gluten everywhere, especially the hazies that taste really good. It's just like gluten on top of gluten. You eliminate those things, and I guarantee you're going to feel fantastic after 30 days. That's all it takes is 30 days. Okay, you can look at research. You don't need the research. Do your own case study on yourself. And if you think I'm crazy, like I said, after 30 days, blast me on DMs and I'll handle it. I'll say, listen, hey, you might be a freak of nature, or I'll be more curious, like, did you really go 30 days though? Or did you add it back yet? And so, or did you do a good job tracking how you felt? But you're going to feel good. You're going to. And I strongly recommend that you do this for your family, for your kids, right? Change these behavioral patterns, change these ties, because you're told time and time again that your family has always been sick due to your genetics or due to, your mom had it, so on and so forth. This heredity component, which couldn't be further from the truth. We harbor the same diet. We harbor the same lifestyle, the same work ethic, the same stress, the same generational trauma that we keep passing from person to person to person. It's just like, just stop it. And it can stop through this diet. And your kids can be healthier for having known this, right? We went to Disneyland, and I'm not proud of it. We had a good time, and Disneyland is one of the darkest freaking places I've ever been in my life. I mean, just the energy is dark, but then you ride Snow White and you're like, oh, that's cool. Demons in hell, cool. Wild Toad ride, oh, what the fuck? Those are demons coming out, and they change the temperature of the room, and there's some screaming hell beast. Oh, okay, cool. Right? But even there, like, we went to eat breakfast with Goofy and like some of the characters, and my son's walking down a little path chasing after Goofy going, hey, Goofy, make sure I don't have dairy. I can't do dairy. I'm allergic to that. And don't give me gluten. Gluten's going to hurt my belly. Like, and parents are like, well, how do you do that? How do you get kids not to eat it? Well, my kid, Hoyt, has had it before, and he's been reprimanded for it because his behavior is unbelievable. He's so pure. He's so sensitive to toxins that he expresses it. Right? When you put up some poison in your body's going to reject it. And so his attitude changes, and I'll have to talk to him about that. So he is well aware that he makes known that, hey, I can't do dairy. I can't do gluten. If I do, I'm going to be sick. It's going to hurt me. And that's what it is. And that couldn't be more right. It's true. Right? So if we work with our kids at a young age, we show them our example, right? I don't eat gluten. I don't eat dairy. Right? It's not like I'm like, hey, don't do gluten and dairy, and I'm over there eating freaking pizza or some yogurt or this, that, and the other thing, and just pounding down chunks of cheese and, no, this cheese is really good, right? Be congruent so your kids can be congruent, so your kids can see you as a role model in this journey that they're about to embark on too, because for kids, it's even harder. Man, it's so hard for kids, right? Going to birthday parties, going to events, going to Like barbecues for my son's school. Like we make sure he just gets plain burger and some lettuce and some vegetables and stuff on it. He's cool shit with it. He's totally fine with it, right? My daughter's a little sneaky one. She's like, oh, what's it? She'll eat some, but she doesn't really, I don't think she's ever really had gluten or dairy, to be honest with you. I don't think she ever has. I'll have to talk to Megan about that. But the more we can support ourselves, the more we can support our children. When we feel the change, the kids will see the change. The kids will see the change. You won't have to yell and scream at your kids so much, and your life, your relationships will all be better. So I challenge you, just give it 30 days. Just 30 days. That's all I'm asking. 1 month. Give it a month. We're going into the summer body season. Do it for a month. You'll lose some weight and trim up. You'll look great for beach season, okay? Use that as motivation there. And as you see these results, let me know. Shoot me a message on Instagram. I'll freaking root you on. I'm like, yeah, go for it. Yeah, good for you, right? Because I want to support you. I want to give you as much free information as possible so that you can be successful. Honest. Know that the first 2 weeks are going to suck. You might feel like you got the flu after the first week or so. Fight through it. Drink plenty of water. The other secret is get that crap out of your house. Okay? If you have one person in the house that's doing it, your success rate is going to be abysmal because you're not going to have support. Plus, there's going to be gluten and dairy in the home, and you're going to be a little crackhead. Might be late at night. You come down the stairs so nobody can see you. Nobody will judge you. You're sitting there eating pieces of bread or crackers. Don't fall for that stuff. Okay? Eat whole foods. Eat plenty of protein, especially for your dinner meals so you're not getting the midnight munchies. Plenty of protein. Fill up during the day. And don't cheat. Clear that stuff out of the cabinet. Let your family know. Let your husband know. Let your wife know. Let your kids know. Like, hey, guys, sorry. Dad or mom's doing this thing together, and we're going to clear this stuff out, get rid of the dairy and stuff, and we're just going to eat clean for a month. We'll see what happens. Right? Go a full month. Let me know how it goes. So that's the end of my rant. Again, I'm probably going to get a lot of crap for this on Instagram. I really don't care. My goal is to help you. And if you want my help, I'm here for you. Other than that, enjoy your 30 days. I'm excited to hear how all y'all do. Because I know this is going to pique some interest. I know people are going to want to listen to this, and people are going to be curious, like, oh, how am I going to feel? How's this going to be? It's going to be amazing for you. I promise you. So enjoy it. Good luck. If you're sucking up, if it sucks halfway through, like, I just need some help, just reach out on Instagram there. Just DM me. I'll help you out. I'll give you some support if necessary. I'll give you a little voice message and stuff like, you can do it. Or if you need help finding alternatives, just let me know. I'm happy to help you through that. And let's just build a community around it. And I love you all as usual. Have a blessed and awesome week.